When God sees you doing what you can, believing when there's no sign, thanking Him when you're weak.
It has recently come to light that Joel Osteen is not an ordained minister, thanks to revelations that have been making waves about him. Indeed, you did hear that correctly. Osteen's legitimacy as a spiritual leader has been called into question as a result of these revelations, which have stirred up controversy and brought about questions surrounding his unconventional path to the pulpit. Come with us as we reveal the secrets that have been kept about Osteen. Get ready to learn everything there is to know about Joel Osteen. I'm curious about your knowledge regarding Osteen's journey to becoming a spiritual leader, and if someone were to tell you that he was never anointed to become a priest, would you believe them? The little secret that Osteen has been keeping from you is about to be revealed, so stay tuned. Joel explained in an interview with the Huffington Post that his father frequently encouraged him to pursue a career as a pastor, but Joel consistently declined the offer because he was aware that he did not have a calling to preach from a higher power. Joel's father, like many other business owners, had the desire to preserve the family heritage, but Joel had no interest in carrying on in that direction. During his youth, he chose to devote his time to basketball and assisting with the television equipment of the church rather than serving in the ministry. However, he eventually made the decision to enroll at Oral Roberts University in order to earn a degree in radio and television communications. Texas Monthly made the observation that, taking into account his history, it was highly likely that his connections to the university and his father's ministry would lead people to believe that he was pursuing a career as a preacher. This led some people to suggest that he might have been better suited for a different academic path, such as one at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. In the year 1982, Joel came back from college and informed his parents that he intended to discontinue his education in order to assist his father in establishing a television ministry. His mother and father gave their consent, but only on the condition that the program would never solicit financial contributions from viewers. Almost immediately, Joel became involved in the church's plans for marketing and television production. While he was in charge, the Sunday service of the church was broadcast on a television network in Houston, as well as on the Family Channel, which is broadcast nationwide. Because of this, the church was able to expand into larger facilities in order to accommodate the growing number of people attending Sunday services. During the year 1985, when Joel was 22 years old, he went to a jewelry store that was owned by Victoria's parents, who were his girlfriend at the time. He wanted to purchase a new battery for his watch. He had never gone out with anyone before, but he felt a connection to Victoria, and he asked her to accompany him to a Houston Rockets game. However, he had never gone out with anyone before. The couple tied the knot 2 years later, and they are now parents to 2 children. When it comes to his marriage, Joel adheres to the Billy Graham rule, which is a precautionary measure against intimate immorality. This rule is defined by the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association as a way to avoid situations that could potentially compromise the relationship. In order to adhere to this principle, Joel must refrain from having private conversations with any other woman besides his wife. Although there are those who view this as a sign of respect for his marriage, there are others who see it as a sign of weakness. The author of a piece that was published in the Washington Post suggested that these precautions either indicate a lack of trust in marriage vows or hint at the presence of church members who might attempt to damage his marriage. Joel, on the other hand, appears to be able to handle these challenges effectively, as he has avoided scandals that have affected other pastors who have been involved in large-scale church scandals. The Lakewood Church had more than 15,000 members by the year 1990, which led to a number of significant challenges. A pipe bomb that had been delivered to the church was detonated by Joel's sister in January of that year, which resulted in an explosion. Thank goodness she was able to make a full recovery. The devil's efforts to undermine their mission were ultimately unsuccessful, according to Pastor John, Joel's father, who told the media that the devil's efforts were unsuccessful anyway. Additionally, he affirmed that he would continue to be an important presence in the pulpit for a considerable amount of time. He declared his commitment to continuing his pastoral responsibilities. In spite of this, Pastor John was diagnosed with severe health problems when he reached the age of 70. These problems included hypertension and a heart condition that necessitated the use of a pacemaker. Because of the adverse effects that his high blood pressure had on his kidneys, he was required to undergo dialysis. When Pastor John was hospitalized in January 1999 due to complications, He asked Joel to substitute for him at the Sunday service. Joel agreed to replace Pastor John. Joel initially responded with a negative response, as he had done numerous times in the past. However, in the end, he changed his mind and granted his father's wish. After 5 days, Pastor John listened to Joel's first sermon over the phone. Joel was delivering his first presentation. In a tragic turn of events, Pastor John suffered a heart attack not long after that and passed away at the age of 77. For Joel, this was the point at which the real work started. Immediately following the passing of his father, Joel expressed to Oprah Winfrey that he felt a profound responsibility to take charge of the family business and to lead the church. This is not the church of God. Rather, it is a business. It is an interesting concept. Take a look at how everything develops further, shall we? This change was openly admitted by Joel, who stated that he felt adequately prepared to lead the church after preaching only one sermon without having received official ordination. Does this imply that he was merely attempting to fill in the gaps and not doing the work that God had to do? Due to the fact that he does not possess the typical qualifications that are typically required for a pastor, such as traditional authority, training, or educational background, this scenario raises questions about the legitimacy of his position. There appears to be less of an emphasis placed on formal theological education in contemporary evangelical communities. There are even those who believe that attending seminary is not necessary. On the other hand, there are those who argue that committing oneself to a ministry that lasts a lifetime calls for a certain amount of preparation in order to guarantee that one is adequately prepared for such a significant role. Despite the fact that licenses are necessary in certain fields, such as the corporate world and the healthcare industry, the spiritual well-being of individuals is frequently neglected. The argument that Joel makes is that his extensive history of working with his father for 17 years and growing up in the church that his father founded prepared him for the role. On the other hand, it is possible that this experience is not sufficient for the pastoral responsibilities that he possesses. Without a doubt, it is not sufficient. Continue to watch as we reveal the manner in which he disclosed to the world that he is not a minister who has been ordained. In the beginning, Joel attempted to imitate the fervent manner in which his father preached, but he eventually realized that it did not resonate with him to the same extent. As a result of his statement to Oprah that he found his strength in uplifting others and talking about life, the question arises as to whether he behaves more like a therapist than a pastor. One of the most common criticisms leveled against Joel's ministry is the suspicion that he has strayed significantly from the teachings of his father, which has led to a misunderstanding of the biblical scripture. According to his detractors, he gives off the impression of being more of a self-improvement advocate than a traditional clergyman. Over the course of an interview with Reformation 21, Joel stated that every single one of his assertions is supported by the Bible. On the other hand, he admitted that he does not intend to provide specific chapters and verses that are in agreement with his teachings. In light of the fact that he implied that other people are better suited to explain Scripture, this raises questions about his knowledge of the Bible. That he believes neither he nor the listener possesses the skills or the purpose for that task is something that he expressed, which some people interpret as an attempt to avoid his responsibilities as a pastor. It is possible that he does not comprehend the significance of guiding his congregation towards an accurate comprehension of biblical teachings, which is an essential component of his responsibilities as a pastor. This viewpoint suggests that he may not possess this understanding. Those who disagree with him argue that the fact that he did not receive a formal education in theology makes it difficult for him to differentiate between hermeneutics and homiletics. It is not uncommon for him to avoid engaging in doctrinal discussions, which makes it challenging to comprehend the doctrinal beliefs that he holds. Some individuals have criticized him for distorting the gospel by ignoring topics such as judgment, fear, and guilt, in favor of concentrating on positive messages that emphasize the kindness of God. A genuine gospel message, according to those who disagree with it, ought to also address the sins that are prevalent in the world. During his speeches, he frequently tells stories about his relatives, and he typically concludes with a passage from the Bible after a lengthy anecdote. However, there are those who believe that this approach does not adequately convey the depth of the teachings found in the Bible. In an interview with Texas Weekly, he stated that despite the fact that he acknowledges the significance of doctrine, he believes that the typical person is not interested in it. He considers this assumption to be misleading. He referred to this as a prediction that was misleading. In order to encourage the members of his church to rid themselves of shame, Joel uses the analogy of the well-known dance move known as the Harlem Shake. It is important to note that Lakewood Church does not have any crosses. Rather, Joel and his father decided to use a global world map to represent Jesus' command to spread hope all over the world, as Joel explained to Vanity Fair. Nevertheless, there are those who contend that the Bible instructs believers to carry out the mission of spreading the good news, which is a message that includes hope but is not limited to it. He was questioned by Katie Couric regarding the reasons why he does not provide his congregation with a more transparent moral framework. Joel responded by stating that there is already an adequate amount of negativity in the world, and that his objective is to motivate and encourage those who attend his church or events. In the Bible, there is a passage that says, "If he is lifted up, he will draw all people to himself." He mentioned this passage. Joel draws a distinct distinction between himself and Jesus, despite the fact that their names begin with the same letter. He does this despite the fact that he acknowledges his own indulgences. He continues to express his unwavering support for his upbeat speeches, which he describes as being motivational. As a result of the fact that he hosts 3 services each week that are broadcast on television, the internet, and radio, it would appear that his approach is well received by a significant number of people. In the same way that the lead pastor was initially brought into the church, other key ministers were also brought in without a proper examination of their spiritual lives. Israel Houghton, who had previously won multiple awards, was initially appointed to the position of worship leader. However, he was later placed on indefinite leave after allegations of infidelity surfaced. Despite the fact that he was involved in his own scandals, Pastor John Gray was successful in getting hired as an assistant pastor and is still being paid. It appears that there is a growing trend of hiring individuals without conducting extensive background checks. It's possible that a more in-depth study of the Bible could contribute to an improvement in the ability to make rational decisions regarding these hiring decisions. In addition, Lakewood Church has included a Spanish-language service on Sunday afternoons, possibly with the intention of attracting a wider variety of attendees. In recognition of the fact that the process of composing his sermons requires a number of days of labor, Joel has gathered a group of more than 2,000 individuals, including members of his own family, to supervise the day-to-day operations of the church. As part of his routine, he begins his preparation on Wednesday, devotes his attention to studying and outlining his messages, and then writes them down on Thursday and Friday. Due to the fact that he has a tendency to delegate a lot of tasks to his staff members, Texas Monthly has expressed concerns about his ability to engage with his followers. He does not perform wedding ceremonies, attend funerals, visit hospitals, offer pastoral counseling, or participate in speaking events, according to the article, which stated that he is not qualified for counseling roles because he does not undertake these activities. Ethical concerns are raised as a result of the absence of hospital visits and speaking engagements, which is especially concerning when considering the strong support from his team. It is undeniable that Joel Osteen has had a significant impact, as evidenced by the fact that he has a large number of followers and is supported by a number of celebrities. In addition to having his voice featured on Slim Thug's album From Houston, which was released in 2015, he has also become friends with Kanye West, who has made multiple trips to Lakewood. A significant amount of attention has also been drawn to the actions of the Osteen family outside of their church surroundings. On a flight from Texas to Colorado in 2005, Joel and Victoria Osteen were traveling in first class when an incident occurred that was reported on by the New York Times. It has been reported that Victoria became agitated when a flight attendant did not promptly clean up a spill that occurred on her armrest of the aircraft. She allegedly pushed the flight attendant into a bathroom door and elbowed her while she was attempting to reach the cockpit. It is reported that she did not have any tissues with her at the time. The Osteens were required to be removed from the aircraft as a consequence of the interruption that was caused by this argument. After some time had passed, a witness stated that Victoria appeared to be disrespectful to 2 black flight attendants. Although Victoria was found not guilty, she was required to pay a fine of $33,000 despite the disagreement. Following the conclusion of the case, Joel addressed their congregation and told them that the outcome was a victory not only for them, but also for the kingdom of God. As a result of this incident, Joel disclosed in an interview that the family had stopped using commercial flights and had instead chosen to travel in a luxurious private jet that cost $86 million and was an Airbus A319. It is because of this choice that investigations into the financial aspects of their ministry have been initiated. In the year 2008, People magazine made a request for clarification regarding Joel's wealth. During his appearance on 60 Minutes, it was determined that his ministry brought in more than $73 million on an annual basis. In 2005, Joel made the decision to forego his annual income of $200,000, which raises questions about the origin of his wealth. One of the answers is the family business that is passing itself off as a church. Would you be interested in learning how they increase their income? Obviously, you would do that. In this article, we will investigate the ways in which Joel Osteen makes money. There are a number of books that Joel and Victoria have written that have amassed millions of dollars. When they moved from a home in Tanglewood that cost $2.9 million to a mansion in River Oaks that cost $10.5 million and covered 17,700 square feet, their ministry experienced a significant amount of financial success in the year 2010. Joel Osteen stated in an interview with Oprah that although the Osteen family does not actively solicit donations from church members, they do receive significant financial support for their television programs. This is significant despite the fact that the Osteen family has a tradition of not asking for money from church members. A more in-depth investigation is required for this scenario. Even though it might appear to be fascinating at first glance, further investigation reveals that prosperity theology is based on fundamental principles. Those megachurches that preach the teachings of prosperity place a significant emphasis on financial donations, particularly tithes, which are defined as 10% of a member's earnings that are given to the church. The failure to tithe is frequently compared to stealing from God, and congregations are frequently instructed to this effect. Critics of the prosperity gospel point out that pastors are the primary beneficiaries of this doctrine, despite the fact that it asserts that wealth is accessible to everyone. Joel's teachings are broadcast in areas that are economically disadvantaged and have limited opportunities for economic growth. The prosperity gospel is particularly appealing to these areas. These teachings were compared to a Ponzi scheme by the Daily Beast, which also mentioned instances of individuals who were unable to provide for themselves financially after giving their last possessions to the church. Nevertheless, when members see their pastor's wealth, they frequently experience feelings of pride because they perceive it as a manifestation of God's favor. The National Enquirer was informed by a New York attorney that Lakewood Church, despite being a non-profit organization, allegedly compensates Joel for airing his sermons. These sermons are also used to promote Joel's books when they are broadcast. During his response to these allegations, Joel stated that Lakewood Church has, for a considerable amount of time, maintained a reputation for being honest and having integrity. Joel voiced his displeasure with the distinction of being referred to as a prosperity preacher in an interview with HuffPost. Joel stated that he does not experience any feelings of guilt regarding his wealth because he considers it to be a manifestation of God's blessings when he was asked by Piers Morgan. To add insult to injury, he stated that it would be disrespectful to God to apologize for those blessings. It has been reported that the church generates an annual revenue of $80 million, which it then puts back into its operations. Upon being questioned about the revenues generated from book sales, Joel admitted that they not only contribute significantly to the church's finances, but also support the church's operating expenses.